Sun cast a shadow, a digital line is coming over the mountain and over your mind. Double down your Bitcoin, hang on for the ride. We're moving into the future, one block at a time. We're moving into the future, one block at a time.
Welcome to Once Upon a Coin, documenting the ongoing history of blockchain and cryptocurrency. As always, I'm your storyteller, Jason Cassidy. Today's story looks at one of the biggest players in the metaverse scene, and a company that's been around a lot longer than you probably think. Their goal? To create a community-driven platform that allows anyone to jump in, create, experience, and enjoy the very best that the virtual world has to offer. This is the story of the Sandbox. In a nutshell, the Sandbox is a decentralized, blockchain-based metaverse that allows players to create, own, and monetize their gaming experience. And while there's a lot to unpack here just with what the Sandbox has created today, its past is just as arguably compelling and really helps put into perspective all the things that this startup has accomplished. It has gone through quite a transformation over the years. So let's take a journey back in time to around April of 2011, when the Sandbox story truly begins. Three French entrepreneurs, Adrien Dormel, his wife, comic book artist Laurel Dormel, and Sébastien Bourget, decided that they wanted to take mobile gaming to the next level. And to do this, they founded Pixowl, a gaming studio that focused on creating engaging games for iOS and Android-based devices. Just a few short months after launching, the company added Arthur Madrid to the ranks when he became CEO in June. The team was now set, and they began to churn out a list of simple, yet frankly fun and engaging mobile games. The indie game studio enjoyed some initial success with the release of Doodle Grub, a cartoon-based snake game. A snake game being a subgenre of action video games where a player must maneuver the end of a growing line, oftentimes represented by a snake or a cartoon-based grub perhaps. This was a wildly popular video game style for decades across various arcades and consoles, and now Pixowl was bringing this exciting form of gaming to the smartphone. With millions of downloads for their free-to-play game taking place, Pixowl now had the confidence and the confirmation from the market to go ahead with plans on another idea they had been discussing internally. A 2D-based building game that had a lot in common with existing franchises like Minecraft, right down to the voxel-like graphics. The studio felt that there was an appetite for this kind of experience and that they could put it literally into people's hands in the form of a mobile game. The premise of the game goes something like this. You play the role of a deity apprentice who sets off to create your own universe using all the resources around you, mostly elements like water, soil, stone, and all the other usual suspects. The game started development with just a single programmer, who the studio had approached when they saw some of the work he had done on a previous project that included the building of a very robust physics simulator. Being impressed with the work he had done, Pixowl asked the programmer if he could build a casual world simulator for mobile phones and tablets. And when the programmer said he could, the studio quickly moved to build an entire team around him in support.
When we approached him with the idea of making a more casual game for mobile and tablets using that concept, that engine that he developed, he liked the idea, and we assembled a team around him of a game designer and a lead artist.
Once the prototype was done, the next phase of the plan had them sitting down with Apple and showcasing an early version of the Sandbox to them. And with 6 months to go before the initial release of the Sandbox, that meeting took place. This was an incredibly important meeting for obvious reasons. If Apple liked the Sandbox, it would not just set up the game for success, but Pixowl itself. Thus, when that fateful day finally arrived when Pixowl sat down with Apple representatives to showcase the Sandbox, the anticipation in the room was palpable. Okay, so you probably want to know what Apple thought, right? Well, they weren't impressed at all. And while they did feel that the game had potential, ultimately it would fall short due to the crude nature of its graphics. In fact, Apple representatives were quoted as saying, "We will never feature this game. It looks too much like Commodore 64 graphics.
During an editorial meeting with Apple, where we show them upcoming games we have in our lineup, we've taken a chance to show them the Sandbox, this alpha version. Their reaction was really not the one we expected. Actually, the guys from Apple, after taking the game 1 minute in hands, told us that the mechanics were interesting, but the game graphics were really ugly. They were like Commodore 64, very old, very pixelated, and it could never be featured by them.
The challenge with the Sandbox was now clear. Building this style of game for the PC, which had a ton of processing power behind it to make things look nice, was one thing. Building this style of gameplay experience for the smartphone was another entirely. Apple's response was a tough pill for Pixowl to swallow, and for a while the team's morale sank to the very bottom of the proverbial indie gamer's ocean. However, this was no ordinary gaming studio, and Pixowl was determined to prove it. Shrugging off the temporary setback they'd incurred, the team worked tirelessly to integrate Apple's feedback, improving both the gameplay and graphics of the Sandbox. They beefed up the team to 15 people and added in software development kits for analytics and advertising. A lot of late nights and final touches were part of the massive amount of work that went into getting the game to a state that the team was quite happy with. In the end, hard work paid off, and by May of 2012, the team felt that the Sandbox was ready for prime time. And upon its launch, the initial reception was more than anyone could have imagined. The game received critical accolades, and the proof was in the pudding. Players downloaded the game more than 2 million times in its first year alone. Even Apple could be seen changing its tune as it nominated the Sandbox for one of the best games on the iOS in 2012. Not giving up on their belief that they had a winner on their hands the entire time with the Sandbox really ended up helping out Pixowl as a studio. They were now firmly in the driver's seat of the indie game sector. Over the next 5 years, the studio improved its roster of games by adding in new titles such as Greedy Grub, the next incarnation of the Grub character that was first introduced years prior with Doodle Grub. Money was pouring into the studio to develop new titles, and before too long, they had amassed a diverse list of games for fans to choose from. But their flagship game was undoubtedly the Sandbox. It had grown to become one of the world's largest independent user-generated content platforms and gaming ecosystems, with 40 million downloads and over 1 million monthly active users. The victories that Pixowl was scoring in the mobile games arena hadn't gone completely unnoticed by the rest of the industry. They had developed an eclectic list of mobile games that each had their own fan following and had built out that portfolio over the subsequent years. So in 2018, a gaming software and venture capital company decided it was time to strike up a conversation with Pixowl because they had a proposal that they felt was worth hearing. Enter Animoca Brands. Founded in 2014 by Yat Su and David Kim, Animoca Brands started out a lot like, well, Pixowl, albeit with a much larger mandate. They also started out in the gaming industry focused on developing mobile games, but by 2018, they came to the realization that for them to reach their ultimate goals, they would have to truly embrace the future of gaming: blockchain, NFTs, and the metaverse. Being investment focused due to their involvement in venture capital, Animoca's new mandate was clear: acquire some of the very best gaming IP possible in the nascent and emerging blockchain gaming sector. So when they sat down with Pixowl and described their vision for the future of blockchain gaming and how the studio would play a major role in that story, Pixowl was naturally delighted. This new plan would see the current Sandbox brand converted into a Web3 game in the form of a blockchain-based metaverse, following in the footsteps of Decentralized. This was a major facelift for the current 2D version of the game, and it now meant that Pixowl had a major partner in crime in the form of Animoca Brands to help pull this transformation off. So, after some negotiations had taken place, the duo went public with their newly formed friendship in late 2018 as Animoca Brands acquired the gaming indie studio for a total of $4.87 million US. And just like that, Pixowl and the Sandbox were thrust into the crazy and ever-evolving world of crypto. The game plan was to begin the blockchain-based conversion of the Sandbox by the very next year in 2019. And they didn't waste much time on that plan because in May of that year, Animoca Brands went public announcing they had raised $2.5 million to build out the Sandbox Metaverse. The investment round was led by Hashed, the largest crypto fund in South Korea. So people were starting to take this venture seriously, and clearly some savvy investors felt that the Sandbox was going to be able to recreate itself in the image of the blockchain. Part of the conversion from a mobile game to a blockchain-based metaverse is, well, building the metaverse itself. And that would mean taking the current world, breaking it up into lots of different lands that came in the form of an NFT or non-fungible token. This is an important piece of information because the Sandbox is an Ethereum-based metaverse, and Ethereum was the platform that was chosen to build the Sandbox on top of, in part due to its great support for the NFT ecosystem. The Sandbox has a total of 166,646 lands, each with a width and length of 96 meters, making it a perfect square. In terms of going vertical, each land has a build height of 128 meters, and a single piece of land in the Sandbox is referred to as a parcel. You can join two or more adjacent parcels together to form an estate. And in the early days of the Sandbox, estates came in predetermined sizes such as 3x3, which was small, 6x6, which was medium, 12x12, which was large, and the big daddy of them all, 24x24, which were considered extra large. Estates also come in different forms, such as the district. And a district is an estate that has two or more owners that individually bring their lands together to create a joint estate. And this district has key decision making put to votes. So this functions as something of a DAO, or a decentralized autonomous organization. Graphically speaking, the Sandbox would keep their voxel design from the past while greatly improving upon the gameplay mechanics to function smoothly within a 3D metaverse. The next milestone for the company came on December 5th, 2019, when they conducted their first ever land presale, which allowed curious investors a look at a 2D map where they could go ahead and purchase colored pixels in return for Ether. The Sandbox conducted their land sales in waves or tranches, which was probably a smart thing because this allowed them to release only a small percentage of the overall land total into the market at a time, ensuring that there wouldn't be oversaturation. This would also give them a better chance to consistently sell out their land sales, which they did. I know this for a fact as just a few months later in February of 2020, I took part in the second ever land presale that the Sandbox held. A lot of people were starting to take the metaverse concept more seriously, whether as a new technology or as an investment opportunity. So it's no surprise that metaverse news were starting to make the rounds in my OG circles around this time when the pre-sales were taking place. The land was fairly priced as well, coming in at around $25 in Ether per parcel of land. And if I remember, I bought quite a bit of it at the time as well, as I felt that the Sandbox had a good chance of success due to its association with Animoca Brands, coupled with its background in the mobile gaming industry. The Sandbox just presented itself as a legitimate investment opportunity in the metaverse at the time. By August of that year, the Sandbox was ready to introduce the world to its native token, SAND. SAND is an ERC20 token that powers the Sandbox Metaverse. They partnered up with the popular crypto exchange Binance to conduct the sale, and the results were damn good. Good enough for them to reach their $3 million funding goal. Between the successful land pre-sales and the now well-received debut of the SAND token, Animoca Brands and the Sandbox had every reason to keep their foot on the gas pedal. And that's exactly what they did. The next step in the conversion process was to start acquiring large existing brand partnerships. This would not only serve as great news since the land and the token were now trading in the public markets, but more importantly, it would prove to the public that big businesses were taking the metaverse, and specifically the Sandbox, seriously. And the brands started showing up in droves. First came the legendary gaming icon Atari, who wanted to create their own Atari-themed virtual world within the Sandbox Metaverse. Soon after, names like Square Enix, the Care Bears, and Shaun the Sheeple joined in, looking to create their own branded virtual content. More successful land sales took place, each fetching higher prices, and those higher prices led to more good news. And all of that good news helped to usher in what was known as the Metaverse hype cycle, and that went completely ballistic around late 2021. This was illustrated by the skyrocketing SAND token price that had reached a high of $8.40 US in November of 2021. The land prices were also going postal around this time, with common parcels fetching as much as $13,000 US, and parcels in more desirable locations were fetching much, much more. To give you an idea of how crazy this metaverse bull run was, consider that if you bought Bitcoin in early 2013 at around $25 US, you'd be waiting until the end of 2017 to see that price exceed $13,000 US Bitcoin. Almost 5 full years. For Sandbox land investors, you had to purchase in early 2020 and then sell in late 2021 to see the exact same return, only a year and a half hold. And of course, the insane prices were literally the best form of PR that one could get around this time, and that just led to more big partners coming in. And before you knew it, the Sandbox was literally boasting hundreds of partners that spanned the gamut. Adidas, Snoop Dogg, Tony Hawk, and Ubisoft all decided to get in on the fun. However, as fate would have it, the bull market for crypto, in which NFTs and the metaverse were playing leading roles in, began to lose steam as the calendar flipped over to 2022. And while this did impact the price of both the Sand token and land, the Sandbox had done a great job at keeping things fresh from the user experience side of things. They made some smart moves, such as creating a $1 million fund for developers that could get grants allocated to helping build unique experiences within the Sandbox. They also announced a key partnership with Polygon, the popular Layer 2 scaling solution for Ethereum, in an effort to improve the scalability of their platform. And to further empower the community, the Sandbox announced their intent to create Game Maker, a tool that will allow users to build their own unique, fun game experiences within the Sandbox. As someone with a lot of experience in this field, I can tell you that this was a pretty clever move by the Sandbox. One of the first things that you'll realize entering into a metaverse is, well, how active it is and how much user engagement is taking place. The Sandbox put a high priority on establishing a culture of user-generated content, and this is critically important to the early success of a metaverse. When someone comes into a new metaverse, if they don't see anything happening, they can get the impression that this place is kind of dead. If they come in and see lots of activity happening, it may motivate them to go ahead and join in and start building themselves. And this can establish a positive feedback loop that plays into the whole, if you build it, they will come mantra. Today, the marketplace for the Sandbox has been completely transformed, with additions like assets, which are NFTs that can be used for in-game activities. Anything from art, wearables, equipment, pets, and much more can be used to accessorize your avatar, pimp out your land, or even design a game playable within the Sandbox. They've also done a really good job at keeping things exciting, bringing quests and other fun activities into the mix, like some of the most creative events you've ever heard of. One area the company's truly excelled at is taking large brands and creating unique and memorable campaigns around them. And this helps introduce the user base to the latest metaverse partner while having a lot of fun in the process. This helps make each new partner feel special. And it helps also give fans a reason to care about the newest resident to set up shop in the Sandbox Metaverse. The map looks completely different today as well, with many companies now firmly established within its virtual borders. One thing that's worth noting about the Sandbox Metaverse is that as of midway through 2023, it's still not technically live yet. The Sandbox map is big. I mean really big for a metaverse. And the lands are pretty damn big too. Although from a landowner's perspective, this is a good thing. Having more space to do what you want sounds like a win to me. However, that also means there's an incredible amount of space and content to render, even if it is in a lower quality voxel offering. Thus, the Sandbox has taken their time to ensure that they can offer a seamless, engaging experience within their metaverse. So, in lieu of not having fully launched yet, the Sandbox did the next best thing by creating alpha seasons, which are basically 1 to 2 month long game showcases, and players can acquire alpha passes to access the appropriate alpha season. This allows users to win prizes and get exposed to some of the best up-and-coming builders within the Sandbox, all while experiencing the metaverse as if it was already fully live. The Sandbox will continue to run these alpha seasons until it is ready to go fully live in its metaverse, and the Sandbox is currently right now in alpha season 4. All in all, the Sandbox has a lot going for it these days. It has by far the largest top list of brands in any blockchain-based metaverse, a great parent company in Animoca Brands to help them grow in the future, and a dedicated fan base that is more than willing to both work and play in the virtual confines of the Sandbox. When you take all this into consideration while factoring in the very real history that this company can build games that people love to play, then it's little reason to wonder why the Sandbox has found itself at the very top of the Metaverse mountain. Hey, maybe it's time that you check out the Sandbox for yourself, because between all the big brands, cool events, gaming companies, and tools to allow user-generated content to flourish, you may just like what you see. And if that happens, it's probably just a matter of time before I meet you on the far side of the metaverse. I hope you enjoyed today's stroll down memory lane. Until next time, have fun and enjoy life, my friends. I'll be back soon with another incredible story to tell you.